When I was a police officer off duty, and I was driving in my right in my personal vehicle, and a police officer would get behind me, I would get so nervous.
Oh, Zion, dear Zion, home of the free.
This Defending Utah presentation brought to you in part by Anderson Accounting, Trust Plumbing, Higher Calling Firearms, Mini Zoo Comes to You, American Appliance, The Editor Lady, Shem Financial Services, and the law offices of Garrett T. Smith. Welcome back to Defending Utah Radio on this wonderful day before Christmas Eve. I am Ben McClintock with my co-host here, Enoch Moore from defendingutah.org, where we think right and wrong, not right and left. Today we've got a very special program for you, and we hope that you'll listen on either right here on K-Talk AM 1640, or you can download the K-Talk app, or you can go to ktalkmedia.com and listen wherever in the world you are. Today we've got a very special program for you. We've got former Salt Lake City police officer Eric Moutsos. If you don't remember the story, it must have been 2 or 3 years now. There was big controversy because he wanted to stand up for his religious liberty to be able to not be forced to march in a parade in Salt Lake City. So without further ado, we'll go ahead and, Eric, thanks for joining us today.
Hey, thanks so much for having me.
And if you could give people just a brief background of what kind of brought you into the public eye, and then we can kind of go into some of the things you've been talking about recently.
So in June of 2014, I was kind of thrust into national media because the headline that came out was that police officer refuses gay pride parade. So the way that the police department spun it was that they wanted to make it look like this police officer, which was me, didn't want to protect somebody who was gay. So that's kind of how,
as opposed to just like that's not what it was about. You just weren't going to march in the parade.
That's right. They wanted us. They wanted. I believe there was 4 or 5 of us. They wanted us to perform choreographed maneuvers, like celebration type maneuvers, on our motorcycles in front of the parade. And so what I did was I just switched spots with another officer it seems like about a week and a half before the parade even happened. I switched spots with the officer. I just said, "Hey, will you switch me?" He said, "No problem." About an hour after I made the switch, an email came down the chain of command that said, these are the assignments, and at the very bottom of the email it said, "Unfortunately, there will be no bumping or trading in and out of these roles." And I knew immediately that that was directed because I got a switch, which is totally in our policy to do.
To be able to do switches. Well, it's not even like your duty to. It wasn't like a protective police function. It was just like a performance, like you said. And so how did the spinning come around? Like, it wasn't just the media spun it. The media spun it because it was the word that they got from the police department, correct?
That's right. And what a lot of people don't know is that about 30 minutes before my story hit the national media, there was a story that came out about a deputy chief who was involved in a sexual harassment scandal. He was sexually harassing 3+ women. He had inappropriate pictures on his work phone, etc. So the chief of police at the time put him on administrative leave 10 months before that. The reason why he put him on 10 months before that on administrative leave is because he would have lost his job. But the deputy chief was on the force as a police officer for 19 years and 2 months. So he needed 10 more months to get his full pension. So the chief, protected him by putting him on admin leave for 10 months. Well, once he finally resigned, I think it was June 6th, maybe 2014. I think that's maybe June 4th. I'm not sure exactly which date. But as soon as he resigned, the media got a hold of it. And mind you, the whole time they were asking, "Hey, what's going on with this deputy chief?" The whole time our public information officer kept saying, "We don't comment on open investigations. We don't comment on over and over and over." So they asked him, "What's going on with this?" "Well, we don't comment on open investigations," right? And so it started to get some traction. That story started to get really picked up in the news. Agencies, or not just news agencies all over the place, were starting to pick it up nationally. And then all of a sudden, I think 28 minutes later, just bam, officer refuses gay pride parade.
So it was and it looks like it has the appearance of getting the attention off of them and onto somebody else.
That's right.
Using you as a scapegoat because they were covering for basically what could be considered a sexual predator on the police force.
That's right. And that's what I believe. I don't have any evidence to it, but just look at it. I mean, there was nobody would have even known this story. It was completely within EEOC law that you can get a trade.
Well, they wouldn't known about it if it was reported accurately. It would have just been a non-story, but they spun it to make it into a story.
That's right. And so it was probably the worst thing that we have gone through as a family, just because, I was at the police force for 7 years. I had never gone to internal affairs for anything other than a traffic accident, which that's a whole nother story. But it was paralyzing, to say the least.
So what's that officer doing today? The one that would have had the scandal.
Oh, the deputy chief? Oh,
right.
He's
still on the job.
He's resigned, but he's collecting, probably $80,000 or $90,000 a year for the rest of his life.
Awesome, courtesy of the taxpayer.
That's right.
On that one.
That's right. And so that's kind of how it played out. But what a lot of people don't know is where I believe it began with my career, and where I believe I gained kind of the, on the Lord of the Rings, you've got the all-searching eye that will find you, and if it does, it's over. That's kind of what happened when I was on the bicycle squad. Let me rewind even further than that, or before that. When I first started into police work, most officers, I would say 99% of officers, they get into this line of work to help people, to serve and protect people truly, and that's why I got into it. And that's why if you ask, an entire class of cadets, why did you get into this? Most people will say to help people. And what I started to see really quickly was the only way that you're going to get anywhere in this department is if you make a name for yourself, meaning that you're a hard worker and you've got your stats can back it up. And so that's what I saw as yeah, I get it, but at the same time I saw such a problem with it because people would, including myself, we would have to generate cases, and I'm not saying fake cases, because what I am saying is that there's so many laws on the books, there's so many things that people could be doing that would be considered against the law by the letter of the law.
Pretty much everybody's breaking the law all the time.
Yes, that you can stop anyone for anything, pretty much, if you want to.
And not only just infractions, but there's actually a book out there that talks about how the average person commits about 3 felonies a day.
And John Stossel talks about that book on Fox News, right?
And so
3 felonies a day.
So if the average person commits 3 felonies a day, you can just imagine how many infractions or misdemeanors that they're also committing.
That's right. And so I saw that immediately. I saw the problem with it, but I knew that was the game that had to be played if you wanted to go anywhere. And so I made it on the bicycle squad, and I actually brought it up to one sergeant one time before I even, kind of made a name for myself, to say. And I said, there's a problem with how stats are being pushed and how stats are being tracked, because that's the way that you look good. That's it, based on your police reports and your numbers. I mean, there was an email that came out from, I believe it was the gang sergeant or the gang lieutenant at the time. And the gang squad is like, I don't know how many officers are on the gang unit, maybe 8 to 10. And that's like a really coveted position because, you get to, I don't know, it's almost like a SWAT position or a motorcycle unit position.
So why would that be a coveted position? Is it because of the pay? Because the workload's not as
the
strenuous?
workload's different, and you're doing a lot. You're not doing mundane.
It's more exciting.
You're not doing mundane. Just taking calls. You're not glued to the radio. You can track people, and it's supposed to be
You're not
pretty
sitting
fun.
in your car waiting for somebody to do something wrong.
Right. So this email came out that said, "Hey, we're taking a spot for gangs, and in order to apply, these are the steps you need to do. Number one, go into the system, which is just like basically the whole database of how they track all the stats, and you can look things up, through NCIC codes and whatnot. Go into the system, type in your badge number. Step 3, type in this date to this date. Step 4, push enter. Step 5, push print. So basically, you had to pull your stats for the last year.
Mm-hmm.
And that was the only thing that they based looking at you on was your stats. So
wow.
If you didn't have high stats, you're not even going to get looked at. And that's the same thing with the motorcycle squad. Like if you want to go to the motorcycle squad, they pull your stats. And if you don't have a high number of tickets, they'll just tell you your stats aren't high enough. So then in turn, why this creates such a problem is because then officers, myself included, they've got to go generate work. They've got to go generate numbers in order to look good.
So I guess playing devil's advocate, and of course I don't believe this position I'm going to state, but what would maybe the response might be, well, what's wrong with that? It proves that you're doing your job. If people aren't doing anything wrong, they've got nothing to worry about. You're just helping to make the streets safer. Sure,
yeah, and it's an argument that anyone that hasn't thought through the process would make. But the problem is that we turn into we now look at people. How am I going to? And I don't want to say hurt because that might not be the best word for it. How am I going to turn you into an arrest, or how am I going to turn you into a stat somehow, versus how am I going to help you? And that's the problem.
And so how does that turn into a problem with the public?
Well, I mean, think about it. You're standing on the sidewalk, downtown. Well, there's a law. There's actually a city code that says you cannot stand on the sidewalk for longer than 2 minutes. And so I'm telling you,
wow.
that's a code.
Yeah. So you've described how officers get into police work because they want to help people, and I believe that.
They're not starting off looking for people to stand that are standing on the sidewalk for more than 2 minutes. That's not their.
That's right.
That's not why they signed up.
We're all born just with the light of Christ, and we think, how can we help? We want to be helpful to our neighbors, to our friends in general, and then some people see careers like, hey, for my job I can help people, and I believe most people that's just the way we're wired naturally, right? We're all children of God, and we understand these are good things that we seek. But then there's a system, a bureaucratic process. The way things are organized naturally pushes people away from that tendency that they started with.
Yeah,
that's basically the summary, big picture of the problem.
It reminds me of the results that treats to the community. Reminds me of a conversation we were having yesterday about training dogs, about how if you punish a dog severely for everything that they do, now they don't trust you, and they're afraid of you all the time. And that can have the same thing. The public would be in the position of the dog. If you're worried about the police always being after you for something, then you're not. You create a new barrier between the law enforcement and the public.
When I was a police officer off duty, and I was driving in my in my personal vehicle, and a police officer would get behind me, I would get so nervous. And the reason why I would get nervous is because I knew, what if I was his number that he had to hit today? Right. Because when you get a moving violation on your record, that's a big deal, because it's not only costing this much money, but now you've got to pay, for insurance.
Right.
And now you come away with this just disdain. Like, I know that there was no way that I could even have talked to this officer out of it when he comes like that. And so,
because you're trying to talk him out of getting himself some sort of benefit, either a career move or
not even a career move. Sometimes it's just straight up, here's your numbers, and you got to get them. And that's when my career went downhill really quick. When I was on the
quotas, if you don't get X amount of something,
right? And let me be very clear: this does not happen in every single squad. and it doesn't happen with every single sergeant. So, at least it didn't in Salt Lake City Police.
So different parts of the department would have different.
Yeah, because if you've got a supervisor who's trying to get their career going, they've got to now show why their squad's the best, right?
Okay.
And that's how they reward. And so whether it's implied or not, the department loves stats. They love it. They love when an officer's going out and arresting people. Love it.
It's almost like commission for a salesman.
Yeah, it's worse. It's way worse, and I'll tell you why. But so my sergeant came to our squad. There was about 7 or 8 of us, and he said, "You are going to arrest 5 people per day now. Misdemeanor arrest. This wasn't just traffic.
Whether they do something or not.
You're going to have 5 arrests." And I just had the sickest feeling in my gut, like I've got to say something. And so I kind of took a stand without saying anything. I turned in 3 tickets. And the funny thing is, I was normally doing 8 to 10 because I worked at the homeless shelter, and it's just all day long, Pioneer Park.
Low-hanging fruit.
It's just, and so I turned in 3, and so at the end of shift, he was counting through 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, going through each officer. And
Everyone had exactly 5 for the most part.
Yep. And then he got to me, 1, 2, 3, and he just stared at me. And I just stared at him, and I knew that there was going to be big problems.
That was the beginning of the end?
Yeah, absolutely.
That moment.
And so he pulled me outside of the office, and he just screamed at me. He's used every swear word possible, and he ordered me to stay after shift another hour to arrest 2 more people. And I still wouldn't do it. And so the next day, it was kind of this, nobody would talk, because he couldn't write me up. I mean, he could, but how is he going to do that? Where I'm going to write you up because you didn't arrest 5 people. I think he realized what kind of predicament he was stuck in.
So there was no way they could give a paper trail to this problem, is the point. That's what you're saying. He couldn't write you up and say he didn't meet quota.
Right.
Because then there'd be evidence that there was this quota thing going on.
I think so. So he didn't. So what he did instead was he just badmouthed me. And so,
but don't they understand? So there's already, because of instances either contrived or real, there's already a problem with the public, a public relations problem with people being afraid of cops, an anti-cop sentiment.
Mm-hmm.
Do they not realize or care that this kind of activity will increase that animosity between the public and the police?
Yeah, I don't think that a lot of them care.
They just don't.
Yeah, a lot of them don't care. I mean, somebody who actually thinks through it, then I think care. But for the most part, big cities, they want their cake and they want to eat it too. They want to be able to show why they're. And another thing with quotas too, and another thing with stats, they get to turn these numbers in to get federal dollars. Not a lot of people know that, and that's a big problem. Because now you're getting incentivized federally with big money in order to show why they need so much help at the police department on a state level.
Do all cities have the opportunity to get those federal grants?
Most, yes.
Do most of them take advantage of it?
Most, yes.
So is there a way – because I actually looked into some of the numbers. Utah has a website where you can see the books. Allegedly, you see all the books of any department that gets taxpayer money, transparency, utah.gov, something like that. And I was looking for grants, and I was trying to find federal grants.
It's utah.gov/transparency.
Correct. That's what it is now because it was changed. And I didn't see the federal grants, but I believe they're there. So I'm wondering, are they funneled through different departments? Or, I mean, do you know exactly the nuts and bolts of how that works?
I don't know, but I do know that there, and I'm not accusing Salt Lake City of doing this, but I do know there's a lot of departments, and it's in, you can research it, but they get in trouble because they'll go back in to the system and they'll change codes. They'll change NCIC codes so it reflects the type of call they need to get those federal grants.
So that's something you've seen happen?
No, I haven't seen it personally, but I know that I know departments have done it.
How do you know that? People have talked about it, or?
Yeah, it's just been in the news. I think.
Oh, okay.
Probably, I think Baltimore was the last one I read.
Okay.
There's a lot of agencies that will do that secretly, just to get that money.
And so, do they care about stopping this growth of anti-police sentiment in the community?
I don't
Or they
know.
just blame?
I don't know when you say they. I think probably some people do, but
in the department,
but when
just
it comes
officers in
down
general?
when it comes down to it, it's all about the money. Like, for example, the entire reason why they have a motorcycle department in most cities is for the money.
Right.
And so
Because it's easy to get tickets and
yeah, so when I put in for a couple other positions, I realized I was getting passed up. I was getting passed up because I was quote unquote insubordinate. And so I called my sergeant and I confronted him. And he basically said, this was your fault. You're the one that dug in, all these things. And I finally made it onto the motorcycle squad. And when I made it on the motorcycle squad, I had heard that they have to do 20 tickets a day, but I couldn't even fathom that. But it was true. We had to do 20 tickets a day or 2 DUI arrests per night because we had to hit 20 points. So 1 ticket a day is 1 point, or 1 ticket is 1 point, and 10 points, or 1 DUI is 10 points. So I actually did a lot more DUIs. I think I had 150 or 160 DUIs in 1 year. But they would incentivize those numbers. And so like the day shift and the afternoon shift, they would give them 1 hour off, 1 hour just kind of under the radar off for every either 10 to 20 tickets. And then every DUI we got 1 hour off on top of that. So I had 150 hours off on top
tickets,
of.
like, are there sometimes like they do these media campaigns for like seatbelts? Are there sometimes where they're like encouraged, they're like, focus on seatbelts today? Get this, or we don't care about seatbelts, we care about speeding today. We care about, or is it just tickets in general?
Yeah, I think that's with UHP, probably. And I know that I've talked to several of their officers, and they have to hit their numbers for sure.
Right.
And so I just think it's really dangerous because number one, it takes away police discretion, and it just completely it just pits the public against the regular police officer. And most police officers, they do not want to give tickets. And so there's a handful of officers, say in Salt Lake City, that they don't play the game. And guess what? They're stuck in patrol. They'll never leave patrol because they don't play the game.
It only makes sense if you're actually trying. If it's about changing behavior to be more safe, what's going to be a more effective way of doing that? Is scaring somebody to death all the time, or showing or just lovingly teach somebody something. I mean, I think we should think of the police as parents almost in this aspect.
Mm-hmm.
If they're trying to change behavior to be more safe, not swerve and not speed, and not be dangerous.
Right, just the thought of an officer getting behind you will change behavior, but then let alone getting pulled over. Like I got pulled over. Probably shouldn't be telling this on the air, but I got pulled over a couple weeks ago because I wasn't wearing my seatbelt. I was going down to Provo, and it was UHP.
That's what the officer alleges.
No, it was. I wasn't wearing it. I wasn't wearing my seatbelt, and so I was driving, and 2 UHP guys come next to me. And one of them's in the passenger seat, one of them's driving, and he looks over, and I realize, oh crap, I don't have my belt on, and so he pulls back and gets behind me, and then I put my seatbelt on. So he pulls me over, and the very first thing he said was, "I noticed that you now have your seatbelt on," kind of in a jerky way, and I said, "Yeah." Because I looked over and saw you and realized I didn't have it on, so I put it on, and he was kind of taken back because I think he thought I was going to lie to him.
Right.
So I actually told him, I said, yeah, I should know better because I used to be a cop, and I would have to give 20 of those tickets out every single day. He's like, what? Who did you work for? And I said, Salt Lake City. So he ended up giving me a warning. But what I'm trying to say is that warning actually changed my behavior because it's like, crap, I got to put my seatbelt on because I just have a bad habit. When I was a police officer, I'd drive around downtown, and I didn't wear my seatbelt a lot because you're in and out of your car so much, and you're only going, 10, 15 miles an hour. So anyway, I just didn't wear it like I should have. So I think, going back to your point, having officer discretion to be able to talk to people, that to me goes so much further. Now, there's times when tickets are absolutely justified. You pull someone over, they completely deny it. They don't care. They're rude. They're I mean, they pass or they fail every single test possible. And I think tickets are very justified then, because it's like, look, you're clearly
unrepentant.
Yeah, well, I don't know about unrepentant. It's just you don't care. You
Right.
don't care about the safety of people around, and most people are just trying to get from A to B. And like I said before, everybody breaks the law. I mean, I'm going to go get in my car right now and drive, and I guarantee you I'm going to break the law somewhere. And so when you have police quotas, it's extremely dangerous, because now everybody is breaking law somewhere. So now it's all about the money, and it's all incentivized.
So what ultimately needs to change so that we're no longer we no longer have police that are stuck under this system of quotas, but instead the police can both actually be this way and get a reputation for this of, oh, the officers are there to defend my life, liberty, and property should it become in danger. And I'm going to support them because they'll have my back, and I know they're protecting my neighbors, right? How do we get from where we are now so that is now changed?
We need to educate. We need to. That's why I feel so strongly.
Educate who?
Just the public. And we have to
of the problem, or
we have to educate the public of the problem, and then let the public be a voice to these
change
to the city council, because it's city councils, it's mayors, it's judges, and then ultimately that pressure comes to the police chiefs, and then the police chiefs have to send out this mandate.
So the police chiefs that they're not just trying to get. Why would the police chief care about the city getting more money through tickets? So he's just feeling the pressure himself from the elected officials.
Absolutely, 100%. I mean, that's how it is in Unified, for example. Unified Police here in the Valley.
Well, Unified's a private corporation, and so their whole base of operation is just to make cash.
Well, I know for a fact, at least, well, I can't say for a fact, at least from an officer that I've talked to, so I don't know why this officer would lie, because I experienced it, so why would they lie to me? But they have to do 500 tickets in Taylorsville every month. 500 tickets have got to come out
as
of
a whole.
As a whole.
And is that an unofficial mandate from the city council?
Well,
is that what
be
you're
from
saying?
The city, it'd be from Unified, because it's run.
Oh, right,
each
because
city on
it's
it
a
is
regional
on the board.
Right,
It's a regional thing. And Unified, I don't know if it's because of the policies, but they're the ones that have actually had the most egregious run-ins with of unreasonableness and violence, swearing at me and threatening violence against me for not having enough money to pay for registration.
Yeah, so I don't know. I just know that if awareness is gonna happen, because everybody knows. Everybody has this deep down feeling they know that there's these quotas.
You're right.
But we've never talked about it. So what I'm hoping this session is that somebody will bring a bill on police quotas, and I hope that officers will then turn around and kind of get a backbone and stand up for it, because most cops don't want to do this. I'm telling you.
Okay.
They don't want to give tickets, but they have to do it. And they have to do it because that's how they measure performance.
Revenue should never come through as punishment of the community.
Right. Right, because it does the exact opposite of what it completely tarnishes the relationship that should be there between officers and the citizens.
Is any of this related to these quotas? Do these relate to not just the feelings of the community, but do they in any way lead to some of the shootings that we see that happen?
Absolutely.
How? In what way?
Well, look at there was a shooting. I think the 1st of January or 1st of 2017 in Salt Lake City. Now, this guy, he was a drug user. He was a drug dealer.
Mm-hmm.
He has a gnarly history. He was probably going to go commit a crime. Well, he was stopped downtown for a taillight on his bike. Okay? He didn't have a bike taillight, and he was going across State Street, and it was 1 a.m. Well, altercation happened. The guy was completely in the wrong. He was getting ready to get handcuffed, and he ran. Well, he pulls out a knife, and he's like, "Get away from me," to these cops.
Right.
And he's shot dead. Black guy. I don't know if you saw it on the news.
I missed that one.
Well, the point is, why was he stopped?
Because of the stupid taillight.
Yeah.
On his bike.
On his bike. Yeah. And so the point is, what I'm trying to make is that if we didn't have these pressures, and I don't know, maybe there's more to the story, and there could be. I don't have all the details.
Not that anybody should be pulling knives on cops.
Right. I mean, the guy, like, the officer was completely justified. Sim Gill justified him. All of these things. But the point is, I wonder. Okay, and I'm just asking this question because I don't know. But I wonder if this officer, how much pressure he had to make stops, and so if you look around the country, you see all these people think that it's racism that's fueling these departments, and I don't believe that. I believe,
especially in Utah, there's more white violence going on.
Right. I believe that it's quotaism
Right.
that's fueling this huge gap between the police and the public, because we've got to make these stops, and then all of a sudden it turns into this gnarly, death.
Right.
And it's like, well, let's talk about why he was stopped in the first place. Let's talk about that.
Wait till they actually, doing something, as opposed to, you're going to catch him doing. If it's a guy like you're describing, you're going to be able to catch him doing something bad in the first, eventually.
Right.
You don't have to
Right.
go after everybody for a dumb taillight on their bike.
Right.
How about, I saw you post recently on Facebook about the shooting in Arizona. The hotel.
Right.
And what do you think led to that? Was that just a bad apple, or was that because of quotas, do you think?
Well,
or?
I don't know if you the first time I posted about that shooting, I thought that the same guy giving the commands was the same guy that shot.
Oh, okay.
And it wasn't. And to me, that makes a big difference. Now, do I still think that the guy should not be dead? Yeah. I think it was a bad shoot. However, by training and by everything that, the guy's reaching back, even though he's going to pull his pants up, he's justified. Like, he truly is, even though it was just disgusting. The whole thing made me sick. But the way that the sergeant was screaming at the guy
created the confusion.
I mean, it was a disaster on every level. And I think that sergeant should have been more in trouble than the person pulling the trigger, as crazy as that sounds, because that sergeant's the one that amped that situation up from when you see it. I mean, obviously the guy that pulled the trigger is in just as much of hot water, obviously, but it's that should have never happened. And I think if he'd have just been calm and collected, calm breeds calm.
So that might have been just a bad training situation, as opposed to a result of quotas and that type of situation.
Yeah, I don't think that had anything to do with quotas.
So training. So speaking about training, right? How much training is federally organized and funded? And then, so because we talk about federal quotas, and we've seen videos about like the federal training. There's a video went around talks about this warrior cop training. It had a different name, but people nicknamed it the warrior cop training. It was a military guy that came in, and they showed the training that they were doing. But it was federal. So how much is federal? So if you cut federal ties, this is kind of where I'm wondering, what difference would that make in local policing?
I think it'd make a big difference. I don't know how apparent it would be right offhand, but I think it would make a huge difference because I don't even think we should have city police chiefs. I mean, I think it should be an elected official.
The sheriff should
oversee
all of that.
Let the people be super engaged on who they elect as the sheriff.
That would be the constitutional position. Absolutely.
Right. And so I think the further you get government out of this garbage, especially with policing, the better. Because, I don't know. To me, and this is going to sound crazy too, and I'll come off as this anti-law enforcement, but I don't know why there's 600 police officers in downtown Salt Lake City. 600. That's a lot of cops.
I've lived all over the western United States, and when I moved to Utah, it was like a police state compared to even like California. I was shocked.
Yeah.
What it was like.
Yeah, and so I think that's one of the reasons why they push stats so hard. I got in a pretty good heated debate with one of my buddies who he's now defriended me, but he's one of my best friends. But and he's a supervisor as a police officer, and he said, "Well, how else are we going to measure performance?" And I said, "That's the whole problem, is that you're measuring this type of performance. I mean, what if firemen had quotas?"
Right.
I mean, because in a lot of ways, we're causing a lot more problems than we think as police. And so, if you didn't have those pressures to hit these stats, then they couldn't show all of this crime,
This need for more and more police.
need for more and more police, when in reality they could probably, I mean, it'd be tough, but they could probably get away with half of the police officers in Salt Lake City. And that's the truth. I mean, you've got sergeants who are over one person, and you've got a lieutenant who's over one sergeant.
That's insane.
And that's the truth.
So we're speaking with Eric Moutsos from dispatchedwitheric, right, .com.
Yeah, that's right. Dispatch. I have a podcast now that I've.
And you've got a book coming out next year, late January.
Yep, it should be done in at least in late January, and it's going to be pretty. It's going to be pretty exciting on a lot of levels.
So you've just letting everybody know again, Eric Moutsos, and you can check him out at dispatchwitheric.com. Check out his podcast and different things that are going on with him and his history here, his expertise with especially policing in Utah. Just kind of letting everybody know again, if you've just joined us for this conversation right here on Defending Utah Radio, defendingutah.org. You can learn more about what we're doing to be able to defend liberty in Utah and to be able to expose those enemies to our liberty. And so, Eric, go ahead.
Can we talk about media for a minute on this? Unless you're going somewhere you wanted to go.
Yep.
So we talk a lot at Defending Utah. Our motto is think right and wrong, not right and left. Right? Here is a perfect example. And the media always gives us the right and left talking points. So everyone knows that there's...
So the right is going to support the police no matter what, and then the left is supposed to support...
Hate all cops and they're racist, right? So we all know there's a problem, but the media keeps us from solving it because they hide the root cause or what the problem even is. They tell us...
Focus on police as opposed to policy, for example.
Well, they'll say the root cause is racism, like you said. Right? So if you're on the left of the political spectrum, the far left, then you're supposed to believe that racism is the root problem, support Black Lives Matter, support this, support that, or whatever. And they draw out for you how you should think. And so that's what people pick up. But if you're on the right side and you're like, well, I don't like all those liberals for this reason or that reason. Oh, I'll watch Fox News. And now, okay, I'll stand for cops no matter what in all situations. And so it creates these two extremes. And nobody can understand the real root cause of the problem, which we have been talking about today, right? And so they're kind of there's some truth, right, mixed in on both sides, but the real truth, there's a right and a wrong. You can't think right and left.
The insanity on each side feeds the extremes on the other side.
Absolutely, right? Just that mentality. And then you think you have to stand for a cause, and so I'm going to stand for this cause on the right or I'm going to stand for this cause on the left, and you're both contributing to the problem and making it worse. You're playing into this divide and conquer game that probably somebody somewhere wants to happen, right? It's serving somebody's purpose somewhere.
Well, it feeds big government.
So
both sides do.
So ultimately, the reality is there's good people, good cops. So the people on the right that want to support the cops, okay, yes, it's true. Cops got into policing because they want to protect people. So that a fundamental aspect of what they're trying to stand for is still true. However, the reality is there's a system, right, that's working against them, and it creates the appearance of what the left then is seeing. And then when the media constantly says, "Oh, look, they shot another black person, or whatever," then it feeds that. So if we can get to the real solution and understand the real problem, which is education you're talking about, right?
Mm-hmm. And this false division also leads to the same result, right? If you support the police no matter what they do, that means that actually leads to the militarization of police. That leads to giving them more power and authority. But also, if you are on the other side where police can do no right, then that leads to more government control because now the federal government has to come involved.
That's right.
And take care of this. And so both sides, the extremes on both sides, are actually leading to the same end result.
It is. Yeah, which is more power to the government. Yeah, you're absolutely right. And it's scary because you can see it happening. And it's like the whole Blue Lives Matter, Black Lives Matter. Right. It's like, it's dangerous. It's dangerous because now nobody's being truly held accountable. And I think that what we really don't talk about is individual responsibility because there truly is a problem in our society with what do you do if you two were police officers and you were to go to a call and you've got 20 just out of control people that would have no problem taking you down and beating you up, what do? You know, because that's what's happening. That's the reality that police officers are facing when they when they walk into certain scenarios. They are in a complete disadvantage, and then they've got a camera on them, and then
guess everything they do.
Yeah, then one kid comes up and starts a fight with them, and then they've got to tackle that one guy, and then now it looks like police brutality, and then all of a sudden these guys are kicking these cops in the head. It's like I don't know where that problem is because of what our society is teaching our youth. You know, it's like I don't know.
But then it seems like the cops will treat every situation as if it was that situation.
That's right. Yeah, because now you're always on edge. Right. I mean, now you're watching.
So the cops are always on edge. The people are always on edge. Everybody's on edge. It just feeds this thing that leads to the shootings that everybody gets upset about.
That's right, and it's so dangerous.
So are you going to run for sheriff?
No, I'm not. Talk about a target on your back. Like I just have unless I saw. Okay, let me take this back. Unless there was like an actual angel of God that came down and said, Eric,
let's work on
you
this.
Must run for this position. And I would have to touch that angel to make sure it's a real angel. But no, I don't have any desires to run for anything like that. It was
Is there anybody that you think that would be a good for that position?
Oh, there's a lot of people. Yeah, there's a lot of people.
That would actually stand to make these kinds of changes despite the opposition they would get.
I don't know.
That's the question.
I don't
right?
know what the problem with any type of political position like that is you are literally taping yourself up on the wall as the biggest target ever, and politically it's just I don't know. I just don't know why anyone would do it. I don't, because you're putting yourself and your family in such
somebody. I think the reason why you would do that is because you're willing to take the sacrifice because something needs to be done. Because if if something's not done, what we see now is just going to be the tip of the iceberg.
The difference between a politician and a statesman, a statesman, right? A statesman has a love for the liberty of his fellow men,
no matter what
his
it costs.
fellow countrymen, right? And that's what they're there for. And then the politics becomes irrelevant to him, right?
Yeah.
But we
see
hear
the
you.
fear. Yeah, absolutely, we hear that.
Yeah, but that's
a hard person to come across.
I just feel like Salt Lake County is like completely lost to the dark side. Anyway, I really do. I really do. It's like
there's some prophecies about that.
The Republic has died, and what do you call those guys? The rebels in Star Wars.
Right.
They are hiding, and it's only going to get worse.
Well, that means people that want to stand up for what's right need to actually before it gets worse. President Benson said that the longer we wait, the deeper the blood, the heavier the chains.
Mm.
And so, before that blood gets deeper and the chains get heavier, we've got to get to work.
Yeah. Wow.
So, some of your Facebook posts that have probably caused a lot of controversy. You've talked about quotas, and we've talked a lot about that already today. Again, we're speaking with Eric Moutsos. Oh wow, that hour's almost up already. Holy smokes! So we're talking with Eric Moutsos from DispatchedWithEric.com, and you can check out his podcast and things that are coming up. What are some of the other things you've talked about? How there's like a special list for individuals to be responded to first above others. There's other things.
Yeah, and I don't have any evidence. I don't have any evidence of it.
These are reports that people.
Yeah, these are reports. I mean, I've got this from some really credible sources. But this is a list that the Democrats have had in Salt Lake City for a long time. I mean, Democratic mayors. Mm-hmm. So basically, there's like this. If they get called, one of the mayor's either friends or I don't know if donors, I don't know what it is, mm-hmm. but somebody on the mayor's list, if they call the police first, there is special treatment. For example, I know for sure within the last couple weeks, one of the mayor's friends had something stolen out of their driveway, out of the car. So it was either a smash and grab, I don't know. Mm-hmm. They deployed all of the detectives from every single unit to come and knock doors in this neighborhood.
But if that was my car, they wouldn't give a...
They wouldn't care. They would do like a
report maybe.
Yeah, so now the mayor has... I mean, the mayor not only has 2 police officers all times,
like a guard.
This person thinks that she is so special that she can have 2 cops around her at all times, full duty.
Her own Secret Service, basically.
I mean, it's crazy. But on top of that, her buddies and her friends now get special treatment over regular citizens. It's disgusting. And so, yeah, this case...
she even said, like, at the opening exercise last year of the gay rights festivals, she said that we, meaning the homosexuals, run the city now.
Oh, yeah, we own this city.
Yeah.
It's and then raised the flag, the gay flag,
Yeah.
up and over the American flag.
Right.
I mean...
It's a political takeover. It's not just a sexual orientation. This is a political movement.
Yeah,
that she's
and
a part of.
and then she'll send out emails to all city officials, like all city workers citywide, come to the gay festivities. 6 times before the gay events start. To me, that's sexual harassment. Like, I don't want to see this.
Right.
Like, what? No, what if there was a LDS mayor that was sending out, "Hey, come join us at General Conference" 6 times before conference? Like, could you imagine the backlash?
Yeah. Wow.
But nobody dares to say anything because,
That's hate.
that's if I disagree with that, you're on the same level as a racist.
Right.
So yeah, it's amazing. But what happens with these mayors is that they create the very monsters that eat them. And so, for example, the last mayor, was all about the gay rights. Was all about the gay rights and pushed it so hardcore. Well, then guess what? Guess who ran against him? A gay woman.
He kind of set himself up.
And guess who beat him? The very monster that he created.
Wow.
And you know what's going to happen with her? There's going to be like a transgendered Indian that's going to come in and take her position, because that's the standard. Well, it's like, well, what's your sexual orientation? What's your race? Are you a woman? It doesn't even matter what you've done. Do you have any experience?
Right. What are you going to do for the city? How are you going to help? What
Right.
Do you understand?
That's
your
the
role?
qualification. That's the qualifying. That's the qualifying thing now, is depending on how diverse you are, and that's a really good chapter in my book about how I called the police department out on their hiring and promoting practices. I actually talked to the head of HR and put in a complaint 4 months before I lost my badge, and I said. I said her name. I said, "What if? Let me just ask you a hypothetical." I talked to her on the phone, and I told her I was really nervous. I said, "I'm really nervous to be calling you, but I feel like I need to, because I just sat through this disgusting, like, they call it diversity training, but it was more discrimination training, discrimination day." But I said, "What if the fire department hired a fire chief who's never fought a fire, who's never had any fire experience, but they hired him just to show how diverse they are?" And the HR lady shot right back. "Oh, I'll tell you, I'll cut you off right now. We wouldn't do that because they wouldn't be qualified." I said, "I'm so glad that you said that, because guess what? Right now, we have a deputy chief of police who's a woman and not a cop. She has bars on her collar. She has a badge on her chest, and she has lights and sirens in her car, and she's not a policeman." And she just sat there. She didn't know what to say. Silence. And finally she said, "Is that all you have?" I said, "Yeah, that's all I have." And I knew, like, the next day, I knew I ruffled a ton of feathers up there. But it had to be said, because everybody in the department was thinking this and was talking about this. Like, why do we have a deputy chief who is a female and not a cop? Because they wanted to show how diverse they are, And it's so dangerous. And that's what's happened with these elections. It's how diverse are you, and now that's what qualifies me to be in a leadership position.
So you see all these different things that are going on with the police departments that actually are creating the problem that is there anybody with the position that is working that would be interested in fixing this, or is there nobody? Everybody's just interested in just promoting the PR, diversity, and support the government no matter what.
Yeah, I mean, there's a couple guys in Salt Lake that have ran as conservatives down there. They're not going to win. And then within the monster, the machine, nobody's coming out, because if they stand up to that machine, they're just going to get crushed.
So Democrats think of themselves as being for the people and trying to overcome this police corruption, but in Salt Lake,
They're the ones that,
feeding it.
they're the ones that are creating the very problem. It's crazy. It's so the irony, It's like it's like the whole idea that, hey, we don't want your Second Amendment right, so we're going to give all of that power to the government.
Right.
Like, think of the irony there.
So we've got just a few minutes left. Is there anything that you would like to make sure our listeners understand, or would like them to take action on?
Yeah, I would just like to say that we have some incredible men and women in law enforcement, and most people still want to do the right thing. Most are just either they're super, super complacent and they just become numb to these issues, or they're afraid. One of the two. But it's real, and I'm telling you it's real. And if they don't say it's real, then they're not telling the truth, which then undermines the very principle of integrity that they claim to have. Because it's a very, very, I think it's the biggest problem. I think it's the biggest, when I say problem, I mean statistics and pushing on quotas and everything like that. That's the biggest, darkest secret that plagues the American police officer and the idea of policing in America. I'm convinced of that.
So what we've tried to do here is, again, think right and wrong, not right and left. We hope, and Eric, correct us if we're wrong, this wasn't supposed to be just anti-cop, and this wasn't supposed to be
pro-cop either.
Just pro-cop no matter what.
Either.
Hopefully we've stuck to principles that can help everybody.
That's right. Yeah, and I feel that too, and I've already got it. I mean, I've already lost, I would say 99% of my friends in law enforcement because of this. Because what I'm saying, it comes off like I'm anti-cop, and it's like no. I believe in law and order, but I believe in proper law and order. I believe in Constitution. Mm-hmm. I wish that the Constitution was taught more in the police academy.
We've talked to two separate officers in two different cities in Utah where they went to training where they were actually told that people that bring up the Constitution are the enemy.
Oh, yeah. I mean, well, there are some people that are, I think they're called like sovereign citizens who don't believe they should have driver's licenses and things
people
like that.
People that don't think the law applies.
Right. But there is a definite, there's a definite feeling like, the Constitution, and I think it's just because it's ran by, big political forces that are doing these police trainings. The Constitution is it needs to be changed from these people. I mean, that's our old police chief was starting to chip away at the Second Amendment.
They're anti-Constitution. So anybody brings it up is a threat.
That's right.
So again, we've been speaking with Eric Moutsos from dispatchwitheric.org.
This will be on our YouTube channel.
.com. Dispatchwitheric.com. And this has been Ben McClintock and Enoch Moore with defendingutah.org, where we think right and wrong, not right and left. Become a part of the solution. Become an activist with Defending Utah today. Go to defendingutah.org. This Defending Utah presentation was brought to you in part by Anderson Accounting, when you care enough to pay the very least. AndersonAccounting.com. Trust Plumbing, 801-808-5470. Higher Calling Firearms, HigherCallingFirearms.com. Mini Zoo comes to you, 801-414-5279. American Appliance at AmericanApplianceHVAC.com. And The Editor Lady, TheEditorLady@gmail.com. Shem Financial Services, 801-856-6151. And the Law Office of Garrett T. Smith, 801-477-1570. Make sure and subscribe to Defending Utah Radio on iTunes, Spreaker, iHeartRadio, and YouTube.